Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to episode number 41 of the Unboxing AI webinar series by CARPL. Uh, for those of you who don't know, the Unboxing AI webinar series happens every Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern. No matter what, it will happen. And this is CARPL's way of inviting our friends, collaborators, customers, partners, people we look up to come share their thoughts, opinions, etc. on our crazy world of AI. The reason we do it as a webinar and not as a podcast is because I do not have all the questions. So please, ask away. The whole idea behind doing it as a live webinar is that you ask your questions. And if you do not know what Kapil is, well, we are your friendly neighborhood AI platform. Uh, we are the connectivity layer between this whole world and ecosystem of AI applications and the world of healthcare providers, bringing these applications into clinical workflows, simplifying the adoption of AI for radiology. And today with us, we're very privileged to have Herman. I am sure, Herman, I will mispronounce your last name, but I will try. Herman Oosterwijk. And is that okay?
Good.
Ah, well, okay. So Herman is it is, and Herman, as many of you may know, is a uh, is probably one of the most experienced healthcare imaging informatics trainers and consultants out there. He's trained thousands of students on the subject of PACS, DICOM, HL7, FIRE in more than 20 companies. He advises AI companies. We've had the benefit of your guidance as well, Herman, especially on connectivity and compliance. Published several textbooks and study guides, prolific author as well. He's especially passionate about helping hospitals and imaging companies in the developing and underdeveloped world deploy imaging solutions through grants and even as a volunteer. And most importantly, he loves to travel with his spouse and manages to stay fit by running and biking, something that we all need to do, run and bike. And he's recently completed another half marathon. So I don't know how you
Of
find the time, Herman, but thank you so much for doing this today. Means the world.
course. Sure.
Uh, so Herman, we typically start these conversations by asking our guest to describe what they do as if they were telling a 5-year-old. So I'm not sure if you've had that opportunity to describe what you do to a 5-year-old, but yeah, how would you do it?
Oh, yeah, it's kind of interesting you asked that, Vidur, because several years ago for my our anniversary, my kids asked the grandkids and say, "You tell her, why don't you tell us what we call the grandpa, we call her Opa, what Opa does." And it was amazing, actually, the responses. So it turned out that our grandkids have absolutely no clue. One of the answers was like, well, he kind of travels around. One of my granddaughters said, well, he kind of hangs out with Oma. Now, one of the older grandkids, um, he actually saw all these, seen at one point all these books in my office. And he said, what is that? Well, that's a DICOM. Oh, yeah, he does this DICOM thing. But anyway, so most of the
That
time,
is
kids have
true.
no clue
That
what.
is true.
Most of the kids have no clue. And so when I think back, I'll talk about a 5-year-old. My youngest daughter is actually a kindergarten teacher, and I sometimes have opportunity to talk to her kids, and it's
Oh,
really
wow.
yeah, very rewarding actually. So I was visualizing. So let's say I sit, and they sit around you, with a big circle, about 25 kids. And I would say, listen, have anybody of you ever go to the doctor because they were hurt? And I can guarantee you, even half of the people would say yes because they follow the monkey bars all the time. And even my grandkids, they always, one time they have a cast in the arm and then on the leg.
Yeah.
And then I would ask them, so The doctor came. Did they actually show you a picture of your arm and you're broken or whatever? And that's something I would say yes. So, and then I would say, well, imagine this: the doctor has this tablet and he wants to pull up the arm, and guess what happens? It shows your leg, and the doctor says, okay, that's wrong. So he does a little couple of other things, and then shows an arm of your neighbor, but not of you. So the doctor gets really frustrated. So what does the doctor do? And he said he would call a person called IT. So call
Ah,
IT, say, hey, fix because I cannot look at the image, of Johnny. And then IT person, oh, let me fix it. So, and I would say, well, I'm the person that teach the IT person how, and that's so the IT people can tell the doctor how to use and how to get up the images and get the right images, whatever. So I think that would be a good analogy. I help people, I teach people and help people to deploy these systems, or to support it and practice it. And anyway, that's what I would say.
you help people see, Arman.
Right, right, right.
You help people see. No, it's
Yeah.
funny because so my father is a radiologist, and when I was younger, he just used to tell me he fixes radios for a living. So that was
Yeah. Yes.
much simpler. But no, I think that is it's very cool that you're actually able to do this, right? Go and tell 5 year olds what it is that you do. Not a lot of
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
have that opportunity. So yeah, so digging deeper, Herman. We were we talked about this. I would love your thoughts on you've been a student first of PACS and DICOM. You've written the book also, and now you've been seeing the evolution of AI in radiology. For the listeners here, how would you summarize what you see in the ecosystem today? Like, what's up in AI?
Yeah. And that was kind of interesting because you told me that you would like me to talk a little bit about the ecosystem. So what I did, I googled ecosystem. So I went to Google. I said, "What is an ecosystem?" And then Google, they have the Gemini AI product, generative AI. It says it's a community of living organisms interacting with the environment. And that actually characterizes where we are with AI today, because that when we talk about ecosystem, that answer is wrong, because the Gemini AI from Google AI is trained to all of the all of the occurrences of ecosystems that are on the web or whatever, and so they automatically associate an ecosystem with living organisms. You know what I mean? So I think that characterizes exactly where we are today with not only generative AI, but also with imaging AI. We have not gotten enough training data, right?
Hmm.
We have not gotten enough training data, the generative AI, that knowing that an ecosystem can also be used in a different context. But uh, we have not got enough training data. So maybe when you look at an AI for chest, because it might only be trained on certain, people with a certain culture, from a certain history, from a certain lifestyle. And we've seen actually AI algorithms that worked great in Boston that fail in Cleveland.
Yeah,
Why? Because they have a completely different lifestyle and there's a different cultural mix in Boston, East Coast, with predominantly white in most cases, um, mid mid central United States, people are much more overweight. Different influence of different cultures,
yeah,
different races. So that's where we with AI today. Well, now that the good news is it's getting better and better and better. Every release, of generative AI is getting better. Every release of the imaging AI, but we're not there yet. We're not there. We're even if you think about that, that hype curve, we're still in the hype, and we're not even at the top of the hype because um, we really haven't um, trained enough, and we really so there are, of course, exceptions. There might be people that tell you, Herman, you're wrong because I use AI in my daily practice every time and it works great. I mean, there are some, I call it niches, some
yeah.
spots that that really make an impact today, specifically on the back end, the generative AI for the reporting, the great solution for summaries, but it's getting there, like little by little. So the first
So
comment I
do
want to
you,
make is that
Herman, do you see a difference between the US and the rest of the world?
uh,
I'll tell you why I asked the question. Because
yeah,
the FDA
yeah,
requires approval at finding level, right? You've got to go body part, modality, pathology, and then finding, right? So chest X-ray pleural effusion, chest X-ray consolidation, chest X-ray nodule, whatever. Whereas in the rest of the world, well, CE effectively, Europe and the rest of the world, you can go chest X-ray normal, as our friends at Oxipet have got, or like chest X-ray tuberculosis, chest X-ray pneumonia. So, do you see that also as a
yeah,
deterrent?
yeah, of course, yeah, of course. And so we have different regulations, different regulatory bodies in the
Hmm.
United States, Europe, and Asia, in particular China, is just probably other, I would call extreme. There are different regulatory bodies. And of course, that has an impact, right? We hear a lot of, I wouldn't say complaints, but comments like we wish that the FDA would be more educated or be more progressive. But
Hmm.
you have to think about it, it's also a cultural thing. So if I think about the different, groups of, of population that use AI, like Europe. Europe is most regulated. The United States kind of in between. China is everything is, the sky's the limit. You can do whatever you want, basically, right? And we're kind of in the middle. We're kind of in the middle. Um,
Yeah,
and that's for the reason because it is also cultural. Like in Europe, I'm originally from Europe, as you know, right? We live very close together. We need
yeah,
more rules, otherwise it will be unlivable, right? There
yeah,
was a rule. I was living in this neighborhood in Eindhoven where used to work for Philips. There's a rule of that you can only put your RV in the front of the house only for 3 days. Here now I live in the United States. I have an RV, a boat, and a UTV and 3 cars, and nobody argues or claims about because I have a couple of acres, right? So we don't need as many rules, and so that cultural bias, right?
yeah,
Versus let's the other extreme, China is um, so motivated to prove that they're superior and that they can beat the rest of the world. So for them, they I wouldn't say everything, the sky's the limit, but they have much less
yeah,
regulations than we have. So it is part cultural, and then of course because we have different regulation, it's here it doesn't go as fast. In Europe, right, right, like go I think France for example, you know. Breast screening is typically done with AI. There's a big movement. Now, also, there are different regulatories because in a lot of countries in Europe, they have double reads. Um, so that's already pretty much acknowledged that the double reads can be replaced with AI, right?
yeah,
And not necessarily always applied. So they're definitely ahead because
yeah.
of the regulatory framework, and you're kind of in between. So uh,
So,
yeah,
so Herman,
it's
we talked about this, right? And uh, we'll come to, we've already been asked a question on regulation, so maybe we'll come back to the regulatory side of things, because once we start talking regulation we can like keep talking all day long. But before that, one another thing that we had spoken about prior to the webinar was that this whole idea of so many different AI companies out there, hundreds of companies, if not thousands, we can't even count, right? So, as somebody who has, pioneered standards and PACS, etc., like what would be your one piece of like, advice or one piece of guidance that you would want to give to, all of the world's AI startups?
No, let me first start off by saying that I'm of course biased because I talk from my background. But I have to tell you, if I would give one advice to AI companies, and I work with several, people come to me and say, "Oh, I have these questions." I said, learn DICOM, learn DICOM,
Yeah,
because and not only that I'm talk about learning DICOM, but see what a standard can, how a standard can enhance, the capabilities of your workflow and everything. because what a lot of companies think, okay, well, we have this finding, we just take a picture. This is a secondary capture, screen save, and we dump it into the PACS and they will figure it out. And then the
Yeah.
PACS comes, okay, well, what is this other image in this study? Oh, do we display it on first, on the last, and what is it? And then hanging protocols get mixed up, and the doctor has to do another 5 mouse clicks to fix it. That was another actually, um, very strong, item that I want to stress is that you want to make sure when you deploy an AI, not only learn NICA, but make sure you deploy it with a negative click. A negative click,
Mm.
that means you eliminate
A click. Yeah.
clicks, mouse clicks. You don't
Yeah.
add a mouse click. You
Yeah.
don't have the same amount of it. You eliminate a mouse click. So the image comes up, for example, and it does a finding right away. Your hanging protocol is modified so that image is zoomed up with the characteristic there, right?
Yeah.
With highlighting what it is. So the doctor doesn't have to open it up, doesn't have to go pick another image. It's automatically there. And to move it and to import the finding into your reporting system, it should automatically populate. And then again, the only
Yeah.
way to do that is by using a standard. If you don't use a structured report, you
Yeah.
won't be that has encoding of all the findings. You won't be able to do that, right? Even a presentation state, the icon presentation state, which is a little bit better than
Yeah.
the secondary capture, is not necessarily good enough. You need to encode the data so that it can plausibly, facilitate the workflow in your PAC system. So learn
In
DICOM
fact,
and
Herman, it's
implement.
so interesting. We've seen some mammography AI solutions, and they create a secondary capture that has a very large, red dot on it. And it's so interesting that the whole intention of that image is to be a thumbnail, in where all the series are, so that the radiologist, again, to your negative click approach, they don't need to open the AI output to know what the AI is saying, right? You can just look at it in the most people have series open, and in addition to the formats, that is, in fact, this ties in very well to a question from Abhishek. So Abhishek is from CARPL. He leads our AI integration. And he says, hi Herman, we've been discussing the best DICOM AI output formats in the past. While it's widely recognized that secondary captures are duplicates and add unnecessary burden to pack storage, they still remain the preferred format, as you said. What, according to you, can be done to make other formats more user friendly and practical for adoption?
Yeah, it's just a matter of education. I think it's pure education
Hmm.
because an AI company, I work with a couple of them, come to me and they said, okay, Herman, can you work on a performance statement? I said, what do you do? We do secondary capture. And they said, hey, secondary capture is nice. It's like the least common denominator is why don't you do the structured report? And then they go, what is a structured report? And how do we encode
Hmm.
the information? I think it's a
Hmm.
pure level of education, number one. Number two, it's always, if you have an AI company and nobody asks for the information to be encoded, right? So it is also the user community that says, you have this AI, but it's poorly integrated. I'm not going to do it. And then I think at a
Hmm.
certain point in time, the AI company with the best integration will win.
Oh, of
Because
course.
if you
Yeah.
can show as an AI company, even if you're, let's say you're maybe 0.5% better from a sensitivity
Yeah.
perspective, but
Yeah.
if you fully integrate it and you don't save for like 30% of the workload from a radiologist, he's
Yeah.
not going to do that incremental, clinical performance. He's going to say, well, I can read more, more mammograms, or I can read more chest, or I can,
But tell me
don't,
one thing, Herman.
yeah.
Can is it okay for a platform like Carpal to say take a secondary capture that has been generated by an AI algorithm and convert that secondary capture to another format? Is that okay from a regulatory standpoint?
Well, but see, that it is, um, let me put it this way, that it's, yeah, and there will be companies that will be doing that, right? So let me go
Mm,
back as an analogy. So we started PACS many years ago, and some of the modalities were just slow. They didn't have DICOM, right? So what we did, we take the video signal, we got a cable, cut it, put a T, put a splitter in the T, in the video signal that goes to the monitor, goes through a box, and the box would just have this frame grabbing, and then we create an image. Of course, it's acceptable because it's the only way to do it. And I think there will always be cases where, it's for whatever reason, a hospital said, I really want this AI because there's nothing else on the market, and they have
mm,
secondary capture. Well, you can do screen scraping or conversion and things like that. Of course, it's acceptable. Is it preferable? No. And would you not want to go back to the vendors? Because by now, for example, going back to the history of PACS, everybody has digital DICOM, right? Has a DICOM
yeah.
digital of growing pains, education, and people getting there, and people see the difference and they get excited about it. So,
Yeah, no, that is very interesting. And Herman, just for the benefit of people like me who get confused by standards, uh, what are what is the difference? And you judge me for all you want, but what is the
oh, really?
difference between DICOM, IHE, HL7, Fire, Firecast, and every other thing in between all of this stuff? What's the difference?
Yeah, and actually interesting you asked the question because a lot of people are confused. There was a CIO a long time ago that said, so what are you DICOM guys doing? Why don't, we put DICOM 807 because they're completely different. So 807 is standard is text-based. Text. Pixel is not a character. A pixel in an image, has a certain representation. For example, pixel number 256 is not the number 256, but it represents a grayscale or a color scale or something else. So 807 is purely a standard for text, right? Um,
Yeah,
DICOM is purely geared towards pixels, images, how to present images, not only how to present it, but also in a consistent way. There's actually a DICOM standard that say that image that looks on the monitor, medical grade monitor, in a particular way, with a particular grayscale, will look exactly the same on another medical grade monitor because one of the part of the DICOM standard is deals with monitor calibration, right? So text, image. So that's actually the big difference, right? Now there's some overlap. I mean, you can actually put a PDF typically a PDF document would then reside in H07, but you can also do a PDF in DICOM. Well, why would you want to do that?
yeah,
Well, because a modality already has DICOM interface. Let's say one of those things that machines that take well, the Excel scanners that take a lot of graphs, and so why don't we just create a DICOM PDF, encapsulated PDF, and then bundle it in the same study. So there's some overlap. So that's 807 DICOM. And then you can see the application areas really EMR, Radiology
yeah,
Information System, Management Systems,
yeah,
text, DICOM, everything has to do with images. Now, the next question is, okay, we have all these features and functions in 807 and DICOM, but one company does a work list with 15 queries, attributes in the query, and the other responder has 25. Or the other way around, I ask for 25 things and the responder is only 15. So we need another standard. And we took the 807 and the DICOM and we created profiles. We said, when you do a query for a work list, these are the attributes that you should support if you are compliant with the, in this case, scheduled work profile. And now let's go to AI. How do you export AI results? Well, go to the profile defined by IHC called AIR, AI result. How do you support the workflow? If you have a finding that this needs to be bumped to the top of the work list, AI workflow, right? So
hmm,
IHC is not necessarily standard, but it is a standard of standards that creates workflows. Now, FIRE is nothing else than well, maybe I don't do it really due diligence, but it's basically a rewrite of 807,
hmm,
using web-based technology. Now, that's a completely new paradigm. right? Because web-based technology, I can do a subscription. I can have a web source for patient information, so I don't need to replicate all the patient information. Usually it's about 25 different locations. If I ask an IT person at the hospital, so how many ADTs, which is the patient update transaction we send out? Oh, about 25. Fire as a single patient resource that can automatically update, so everybody has the same patient information. So it's a new paradigm,
Got it.
web-based, and the equivalent in DICOM is called DICOM Web. So we have Fire
Oh, okay. Now I
and
understand. Got it.
DICOM Web. And then Firecast is actually a replacement of something we called CCAO, that was not widely deployed, Clinical Context Object Working Group, CCAO. And that basically, very important again, synchronizes two applications. And I have to tell you kind of a sad story. I was involved in a lawsuit. Sometimes they ask me as be an expert witness, where a radiologist reported on the wrong patient. Right? You have
Oh,
multiple things open, right?
yeah.
So Firecast synchronizes the one application with the other application. So if you look at an image, it will guarantee that you have also the report of that patient at the same time. So, and the synchronization is a big
Got it.
thing. So Firecast will really help deploy that. Cow, the predecessor, was not widely deployed, but I think Firecast will really help to drive that. And it's critically important.
Got it. Got it. So, we are running out of time, so I'm going to quickly go through some
Sure.
of these questions. Uh, I will avoid the politically motivated questions around the FDA layoff because we know nothing about it. So, we'd rather not talk about it. But unless you want to,
I think
I think
maybe a minute. So the United States has a long history of regulation. 200 years ago, people, people would go around and I have to apologize. It's kind of really interesting because my battery is low. Maybe it's a good
no,
time.
it's
But anyway, so people would sell snake oil, and so we said we need to have regulations. So I think regulations, if it has to do with safety, it's a good thing, right? I wouldn't say you might have, it could be too much, but definitely would be a good thing. So
got it. Got it. So, there's one question from Aditya. Aditya runs compliance at CARPL. He asks, Hi Herman, the FDA recently identified vulnerabilities in certain patient monitors that could allow unauthorized access, enabling actors to bypass cybersecurity controls and potentially manipulate the device. Your thoughts on this?
that's a big issue, security, and that's why the FDA really stepped up. So you need to have a security plan, right? So I think cybersecurity, we're all worried about it. Definitely a must. Yeah. So
Yeah, I
okay.
think it's an obvious thing. Correct. We've got a comment from Shahnawaz Khan. Hi, another way can be to keep the secondary capture in the source AI. Just import the DSR. What is DSR?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know
Maybe ask
either.
a DICOM
This can
expert.
save the
Ask a DICOM expert.
yeah.
Yeah. Ask a DICOM
This can
expert. I don't know.
DICOM SR. Okay, DSR is DICOM SR. Got it. Thank
Oh,
you,
yeah,
Shahnawaz. Yes, correct. You
yeah.
should just import the DICOM SR, and this can save the burden of unnecessary storage. And if the RAD wants to
Yes,
have a look at the secondary capture, they can log into the, AI through single sign-on or something like that. So yes, absolutely.
absolutely.
And yes, one last question is why do certain solutions not meet FDA or CE approval in the field of AI in certain regions or geographies? Hmm.
Well, because they have very specific regulations with regard to
Yeah.
the amount of training data. You have to show mostly about the safety, cybersecurity. Just go, if you don't meet the regulations, you don't
Yeah.
pass. So,
You
and
can't
they're
sell.
different in a different part of the world. So, yeah,
Correct. No, I think we are at time, Herman. We try to always end on time. And
that's
thank
good.
you so much.
Of
Maybe we
course.
do a part two soon. I don't know. Given the interest,
Who knows?
things are comments, etc., are all popping in. Thank you everybody for joining. A couple of comments from Dave Vance. HIPAA updates, encryption in transit. all fun stuff. So thank you so
Well,
much
we can
everyone
talk
for
about it.
joining. Yeah, I know. Maybe we do part two soon. I'll reach out to you. But thank you, Herman, and
Okay,
thank you to everybody who joined. Thank you so much.
sounds good.